We have a video. It's like 4 minutes of him being on the edge of the cliff. 4 minutes. And there's people behind him. And I'm like, God, you got to just do it. Yeah. And then one of my managers was like, Jessie, like, leave him alone. Like, and I'm like, it's been 4 minutes. I'm like, he's not jumping in. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, this is it. When I hit 3, you go. You don't think about it anymore. Ready? Sure. 1, 2, 3. And he jumped. And I was like, right. Ah. I was like, that's the key, man. It's the key. Because you just got to give someone no options.
What up? It's Dramos, and this is the recap. Of course, as I do each and every week, breaking down some of the biggest headlines from this last week. And I should say that it is season 2 of the recap. Yes, it is the premiere of season 2 of the recap. I'm beyond excited to be back. Very happy that I did not get fired. So we're all here. Life is good, man. I can't complain. And speaking of not being able to complain, I'm super excited about this week's guest. She's one of my favorite artists. She's absolutely incredible. She is a Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter who goes by the name of Jessie Reyez. She'll be hopping on in just a little bit to help me break down some of the biggest headlines from these last couple weeks, I should say, that we've been off. But before she does that and gets on the show, let's dive into some of the BS, man, that we've been seeing these last few weeks. Now, listen, I wish I could tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed, my time off during this break. But the reality is, like many of you, I was just trying not to die of a heat stroke in my own home these last few weeks. I mean, like my neighbors are probably traumatized at this point because of the number of times they've seen me walk by my window half naked. But I mean, let's be real here. With the heat waves that have been, affecting much of our country over these last few weeks, clothing, it's just not an option right now. And aside from abnormal temperatures, we're also seeing crazy wildfires in places like Hawaii and Oregon, where highways are being closed and mandatory evacuations are being put in place. And as terrible as all of this is, the good thing is, the good thing that we can at least, count on, we can say that we live in a country where science and facts always prevail. And in a country where our elected officials, man, they follow science, right? And they use it to take steps towards protecting us from future tragedies. And if you believe that, my old friend, the Nigerian prince, man, he still has this incredible investment opportunity for you. The reality is we actually live in a country where people like Senator Ron Johnson, whom I've never actually met, but just looking at his picture, I can guess he's used the phrase, get off my lawn, at least once or twice. But people like him, they are still saying things like, and I quote, I think climate change is bull, and I'm trying to have a season 3, so you're going to fill in the blank for that one. But they're still saying things like that. And it's not just people like Senator Ron Johnson, right, who deny that climate change is a problem, but it's also those who place the blame and responsibility in the wrong places. Take the city of New York and its cheeseburger-loving mayor, Bill de Blasio, whom in the midst of a terrible heat wave here in the city had the nerve to ask New Yorkers to limit their use of air conditioners. It's like, I'm sitting here swimming in a pool of my own sweat, having to peel myself off of the plastic on my grandmother's couch every time I have to use the bathroom. And you're asking me to limit my use of the air conditioner? Like, how about we first start off with Times Square. Let's take a look at the M&M store. I think they can probably survive by turning off the power on their giant M&M dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Like, I think we could start there before you ask me to sweat through yet another bed sheet in the middle of the night. But this goes beyond just, sweat stains and chafing. It is yet another glaring example of how we, as the little guy, are expected to save the world. We're expected to pay higher taxes while the rich are given loopholes to get out of it. And we're asked to do things like switch to reusable shopping bags, to cut down on plastic. Meanwhile, huge corporations are allowed to continue to create and mass produce tons and tons of plastics and products that use plastics. America's like the equivalent to that one misguided uncle that we all have, right? Like the one that lights up a cigarette in front of you as a kid, and right after he takes a long and what seems like incredibly refreshing pull, has the nerve to look at you and say, I better not catch you smoking. It's like, huh? Something just doesn't add up here. And don't get me wrong, like I'm more than willing to do my part here, but let's also be real. I don't think my Brita filter and metal canteen or my commitment to only using paper straws are going to be the things that are the answer to saving the world from destroying itself. And side note on paper straws are probably one of the worst inventions of all time. Like, I get it. Your heart was in the right place, but these things do not work. Like, if I'm not prepared to chug my iced coffee in T-minus 2 minutes, that paper straw becomes useless to me. And now it's, gone all in the drink. The drink is wasted, and I no longer want my iced coffee. Now, I understand that this is like first world problems, but please, can we come up with a better solution? But I digress. My point here is, right, that it's time to stop letting our funky ass uncle make decisions for us that potentially can be the difference between life and death. That means actually caring enough for us as the American people. That means us as the American people having to take the time to care enough to educate ourselves on who is in office and what their policies are. And then using that information, right? You actually have to take action as well, using that information to come out and vote in things like the midterm elections that are happening next year. Because if we don't do that, right, and we choose to continue to use our time arguing with one another on the internet about canceling a celebrity who did something we don't like, Mother Nature is just going to take it upon herself and decide to cancel us for good. Now, with that said, let's brighten up the mood a little bit with today's guest. Help me break it all down this week. My guest is a Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter whose latest single, Rain, from the Suicide Squad soundtrack is available everywhere right now. Jessie Reyez, how we feeling?
Feeling good, man. Feeling great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I mean, listen, you got 1,000,001 things going on. I mean, the world's opening up. I'm expecting to hear a bunch of things that you're working on. Before we get to that, though, if it's cool with you, I kind of want to touch on a couple current events to get your perspective. Let's start, with Cardi B. That was kind of some of the big news over the last couple weeks. Mama Barty is she's expecting baby number 2. And I think it's interesting because Cardi kind of defied all of like what everybody was saying about what you could and couldn't do as a woman in this industry, I feel like, when it comes to family and different things like that. A lot of people kind of counted her out with that first baby. She was supposed to go on the Bruno Mars tour and all that kind of stuff. I mean, for you, is it empowering to kind of see somebody being able to balance like life as well as their career like that?
Of course. It's beautiful to see, especially because it's like, and it's not easy,
Right.
It's not easy to be a woman, period. It's not easy to be a woman in this business, period. Not easy to be a woman in this business with a family and a child and still have a thriving career, period. So I think anytime anyone's able to do that and do it successfully, it's admirable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that the pandemic has done is like showing people a lot of like work-life balance kind of, you know what I mean? Like you not even just entertainers, but regular people with 9 to 5s, like being able to work from home and being able to have dinner with their family every day and all these different things. I mean, for you, what kind of perspectives do you think that has given you? Because I know I see all the time you're posting like your family, like your dad and everything like that on Instagram. So I know you guys are super close. I mean, what kind of perspective has this whole experience given you?
Well, when the pandemic first started, I was on tour and I was opening for Billie Eilish, and we were a few shows in. And so we were going from like massive shows to going back to Toronto and having 4 walls. So before I saw any sort of silver lining, I saw the darkness first because it kind of affected me psychologically, like negatively, like a lot of people. Some people thrived. Some people were able to thrive off it. Some people weren't. Some people, it was a process. For me, it was a process.
Right.
First, it was difficult, and then I was able to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna take this as an opportunity to self-assess and do some like clean house inside and assess like why I think certain things and why I have certain triggers, and like therapy, self-help books, and all these things is kind of what it affected me more on a personal level as opposed to how I interact with other people, because usually I am interacting with other people, but it was few and far in between where I had time to myself to just be by myself.
Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful that you were able to find a way to use the time to kind of like self-reflect like that, It's easy to kind of like drown yourself in being busy and ignore kind of all those things, you know what I'm saying, that I'm sure were probably bothering you. Before that, you just found things to kind of keep your mind off it, you know?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, and I think even just looking at you, I mean, you talk about being on that Billie Eilish tour, you were putting out an album, all those different things, right? So it was kind of like this perfect timing that was happening last year for you. I mean, so I can only imagine how that was. What was kind of the turning point for you? Like that got you out of that funk that kind of said, you know what, I'm gonna turn this into something positive.
Really altered everything. And it was that in combination with like meditating and prayer and journaling and doing this thing called, there's this other program, it's for free if anybody wants to try it. It's online. It's called Deepak Chopra's 21-Day Abundance Meditation. And it's like a workbook. So like we'll do a meditation for 10 minutes one day, and then there's like a question and be like, okay, well, write these thoughts out. And then the next day it's that, the next day. So I think the turning point was when I was finishing up the Power of Now, that my brain kind of went, okay, this is going to be whatever you want to make it. So if you're the creator, make it something good.
Yeah, no, that's dope. I've never read that book, but I've like listened to a bunch of his interviews. The one I read that I remember snapped me out of something, like a funk that I was in one time. It's this book, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. And basically it's kind of like, it's similar to the concept of like finding, you know, the present moment, but it's like anytime you're procrastinating, anytime you're like in a funk where you don't want to get out of bed, you count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's it. Like you go. It's like a rocket ship. You got to take off.
That's sick. I didn't know that book existed. I've been doing that all my whole life. Anytime I'm going to go jump off a cliff, like I swear, because I love cliff jumping and I love doing that stuff. And people are sometimes like, damn, like, aren't you scared? Aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm scared. But when I count, like I get there and I'm like 3, 2, 1. Or I'm like 1, 2, 3, go. Because your fear comes when you think about it. But if you just do it, there's no time to be scared. One time, me and Chelo, one of the guys on my team, we were in Mexico doing a show, and Cabo, somewhere where there's rocks in the middle of the ocean, and you take a boat to those rocks, and there's cliffs, and you jump in there, and like the climb up was wet, like it was a wet cliff, so it's scary already walking up. And my manager jumped, I jumped, and it was Chelo's turn. And Chelito, like, we have a video, it's like 4 minutes of him being on the edge of the cliff. 4 minutes, and there's people behind him. And I'm like, God, you got to just do it. And then one of my managers was like, Jessie, like, leave him alone. Like, and I'm like, it's been 4 minutes. I'm like, he's not jumping in. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, this is it. When I hit 3, you go. You don't think about it anymore. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And he jumped. And I was like, I was like, that's the key, man. It's the key, because you just got to give someone no options.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Yeah, and it's interesting because like a lot of times when we miss some of those moments in our lives that we could have taken advantage of a situation, it's because we waited that split second to overthink it. You know what I'm saying? Like we doubted ourselves for a second, the moment passed by us, and that was it. You know, so it's like, and it's funny that these things sound so dumb and so routine, but like so many people don't realize just little things like that could be so life changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, crazy.
It's absolutely beautiful. So, I mean, what's like your routine now then? I mean, you talk about meditation. Like, do you have like a daily routine that you like to do to kind of get your head right for the day?
I did. It's a little thrown off right now, to be honest, because everything got kind of hectic the last 3 days, but not saying it out loud is probably when I need it the most is right now. But I was meditating every day. I was reading every day. I have like a nighttime routine, which I love. Like I just sage my room, do some Palo Santo, and then in the morning, I also like got into the habit of the second I wake up, it's just gratitude, like gratitude affirmations, and then not grabbing my phone, like saying those things first before I grab my phone really helps. But like, I'm human, like, so I'm not, like the last couple of days, I haven't been able to do it because I got turbulent. But literally, as I'm speaking to you, I'm like, these turbulent days are where I need to make sure I'm doing it, because those are the days where I need it the most, you know?
Right. Do you feel like, because I kind of feel like when I'm too still, I start getting into like one of those funks. Like I need some of those turbulent times where I'm like running and doing things 24/7 for a little bit. Do you kind of feel like you're the type of person who needs that balance?
No, bro. I like there's a difference for me, because if I'm busy, but turbulent, I don't like it. Turbulent is like,
what's the difference?
When people start saying, yo, Mercury's in retrograde, because like everything's going wrong. Like when Murphy's law applies in every situation. When you left the crib late and you didn't get breakfast, or your coffee spilled in the whip, or like just it's those days where like everything starts going left. But those days are where, if you can like just like center, I feel like it would help me. I gotta get better at that skill. I'm good at centering in everyday life. I gotta get better at centering in turbulence.
Do you believe in like Mercury and retrograde and all that like astrology stuff that people talk about?
Yeah, I do. There's patterns in atoms. There's patterns in the way leaves grow. There's patterns in snowflakes. There's patterns in weather. There's patterns in time. What makes us exempt as human beings if we're a product of life? There has to be patterns to our rhythms of like emotions and the rhythms of what happens. Like it just seems when you pose it like that, it seems laughable that someone would argue that we're exempt. But snowflakes, leaves, time, weather, science, everything else has to cater to the laws of patterns. But us, we cater to patterns too.
That is true. You know what? I used to laugh about it, but my girl like is super into astrology and would just like read me my horoscope and all these different things all the time. And it started being like so spot on that I was just kind of like, damn, I think low key, there might be something to this. I gotta stop laughing about this.
Yeah, for real, man. Like, I believe in it. I believe in it, but I believe in it because it's not just porque me nace or because it resonates with me, but like, if you just use logic, people that argue logic against it, you could argue logic for it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, talking about the pandemic as we're getting out of it, we just saw Foo Fighters playing the first concert at Madison Square Garden, which looked amazing. I mean, you got to be itching to get back out on the road, I'm assuming. So what's like your plans or your mindset? Or are you kind of craving getting back out there?
I'm focusing on finishing the album right now.
Okay.
And I'd be lying to you if I told you I can't wait to go back into like hecticness and stuff like that. Like, I'm excited for it. I'm like, but I know there's people that are at home like itching for social interaction, and I'm over here like when the next show comes, it comes. But if I got to spend a few more weeks by myself, I'm not mad at that either. So
well, what do you think it is? I mean, I feel like so many artists, a lot of people that I talk to are kind of like introverts at heart. You know what I mean? But and even myself included. But it feels like at times there's something you just kind of turn on to make it work. For you, what is it? Like, how do you kind of balance that out?
Music. Yeah. I think music is my scale. Music is my weight. There's people that like, what did I say before? I feel super comfortable on stage. Super comfortable in front of thousands of people. Super comfortable. Put me in the crowd to go network. And I feel tense. Yeah. Like on stage, in front of everybody. It's so funny because you think it'd be backwards, but as soon as I'm in the crowd, then I get social anxiety. Then I get like in my head. Then I'm like, but it's just, but I think that music is my conduit to having more fluidity with my social skills,
Yeah. It's like it's your vessel to kind of express that side of yourself, or to just, because it's in there somewhere, I'm sure, you know what I mean? Like a part of you does get that thrill from being with the crowd and things like that. You know what I mean?
Like on stage. Yeah. Right. Yeah. On stage is lit, but in the crowd, no, not really. Like I like my space. Right. But that's what's crazy. If I'm crowd surfing, yeah, man, hands are on my ass, hands are like everywhere. And I'm like, whatever, it's lit. But it's different because I don't know, it's just a different dynamic. But when I'm at shows and I'm in like, I'm not trying to be in the mosh pit, bro. I want distance, like social distancing. I was like, this is perfect. I love this. Stay away from me, bro. Like 6 feet. I love it.
We're talking about your music and what it does for you. I mean, let's kind of dive into a little bit of your style, because I don't know, I'm a huge fan of what you do, and it's, to me, I don't want to put you on this, where it's too big of shoes, but you remind me, as far as like your honesty and the way that you're able to really convey all the aspects of human emotion, from anger to sadness and everything between, like very reminiscent of like Lauryn Hill to me. And it's the way you express like heartbreak. It's not in just a sad way. It's also the very human way of like, I'm pissed off at this person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I should have effed your friends. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like, so because that's like the real honest thing, right? Like when you go through a bad breakup, somebody screws you over. It ain't just like, oh, you're heartbroken eating out of like, eating a carton of ice cream or something like that. There are moments where you're truly just pissed off at that person. I mean, so for you, I mean, is there any self-conscious moments when you're being so kind of vulnerable and saying these things? I mean, especially even knowing that people that you live with, your parents, your friends, relationships, whatever the case may be, are one day going to probably hear these words that you're speaking.
I've the benefit of having a Colombian family is that, like, Spanish songs, maybe sometimes, but in English, I'm like, whatever, is fine. Like, even I could cuss at home in English, but I couldn't cuss in Spanish. You know what I mean? Really? Like, so it was different. Yeah. I've only felt that with like 2 songs, to be honest, where I had to give my family a heads up, be like, yo, pilas, this is what it is, you know, just so you know. Like that's kind of the energy I have for it. Just like, this is what I felt. This is the song that came out. Yeah. And also people don't like it. I'm sure my ex doesn't like it, but like, it's what it is.
you'd be inauthentic to yourself if you start censoring it because you're scared of somebody who might hear it. You know what I mean?
100%, man. 100%. And what censorship? For
Right.
what? Censorship and art are polar opposites. Like one
Yeah.
can't exist when the other's present, you know? It's like the moon and the sun. You just can't have them both in the sky forever. So you gotta let one live.
That's true. I mean, I think also the irony is the more you kind of throw yourself out there and put yourself out there, the more people begin to resonate with you. You know what I mean? And like, that's when you really start gaining fans. You really start seeing like, wow, this actually touches people. You know what I mean? My ability to express myself and not care and not hold back is actually doing better for me, you know?
Yeah, crazy. It's like a tightrope because then sometimes people will be like, so you have to be heartbroken all the time. So like, are you sabotaging relationships? And I'm like, no,
Right.
that's not what I'm doing. I don't think I'm doing that. And then I talk to my therapist and then like try to just work shit out to make sure I'm not doing that.
Or people think that like you owe them more. You know what I mean? Like you owe them even more of your personal life. You know, I feel like you might draw them in sometimes. Like we see that with like people were like waiting outside like Justin Bieber's apartment in Brooklyn the other day, and like he had to like reprimand his fans like, "Yo, this isn't okay." You know what I mean?
It's like a beast though. I'm scared of fame. I'm scared of more fame. I feel like I have so much left to do. I have so many more goals. I have so much higher things. Like I have so much higher to go in my opinion and more things to achieve. But I know that with that comes more fame and the beast that is fame. So like I'd be lying to you if I told you like I don't think about that stuff. And like I've dealt with stalkers. I've dealt with like things like that are just like the beginning of when things start getting crazy. So I'm nervous about that. Especially because I'm not even that extroverted in general. So like I'm nervous, but
well, I mean, because it's when you're pushing that hard for greatness, other things are bound to get sacrificed amidst it. You know what I mean? And we see it with like Michael Jordan when that documentary came out. You kind of saw his personal relationships weren't that great because he was so dedicated to being the greatest basketball player. Tiger Woods, people like that, you know? So it is like this weird balance, and like you're almost inviting kind of, I don't know, destruction in one part of your life by chasing being so great in another.
Yeah, you have to sacrifice. Bro, I don't have that many friends to begin with either. And I don't have that many friends because people will get tired of inviting me out when I'm like, nah, I'm in the studio. Nah, I'm working. Nah, I'm this. Nah, I'm that. Like, it just is what it is. Nothing's free in life.
Right. That's a good point. Let's uplift the mood a little bit and talk about...
I know, it's so somber. I know it's sad. But it's sacrifice for good, though. In the name of like, in the name of what you love, sometimes the sacrifices is what you got to do. Otherwise, you don't love it enough. I love music enough to make it the forefront of my life.
Yeah, I mean, and your pursuit of greatness is what is giving other people an escape. You know what I mean? You're making other people who are listening to your music and who are, you know, able to see themselves in it. They're now knowing they're not alone in it. You know what I mean? So they're like, there is something to what you're doing, you know? Let's finish off. I want to know about that. You said you're working on the new album. I mean, anything you can let us know, any expectations as far as when you think it's out? What are we looking at?
More info is going to come out soon. I've been busting my ass. I pretty much doing sound selection right now, finalizing a track list, and I'm just excited to have more music out again, man.
That's a beautiful thing. Well, listen, Rain is out everywhere right now. People can go check that out on probably like the biggest movie of the summer. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Shout out Grandson. Shout out James Gunn.
Yes, absolutely. So listen, I appreciate you for hopping on. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. So I appreciate you. Thanks for the conversation. Man, big thank you to my guest one more time, Jessie Reyez. Her new single, Rain, is out everywhere right now. She's also got just an incredible body of work for you to check out. So much music out there. It's just absolutely amazing. So do yourself a favor. Make sure you go check her out. And before we get out of here, man, let's end the show, of course, on some positivity in the form of a positive quote. Now, this week's quote comes to us from one of my favorite authors out there. All his books are absolutely incredible. His podcast that he does every day, The Daily Stoic, is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go check all that stuff out. Ryan Holiday. And the quote is, the more at peace we are, the more productive we can be. I'll say that again. The more at peace we are, the more productive we can be. And I just thought that was incredible quote to go off of what Jessie was talking about, you know, starting with the pandemic and being in such a dark place. And then, you know, finding that peace, you know, through reading and meditation, all these different things. And now she's, you know, getting ready to finish up a new album. You know what I mean? She found that peace and was able to become productive once again, you know? So in times of turmoil and so much going on in the world and in our personal lives, it's important to do things that bring us back to a place of peace, so that we can then be productive and get the work that we want out there, get our, creativeness, our arts, our, just overall jobs out there to the world, our ability to be good at our jobs. It all relies on us being able to act from a place of peace. So whatever brings you peace, man, just make sure you go out there and you go find it and you implement it into your daily life. And man, you'll be on your way to living a far more productive life in your creative and entrepreneurial or career endeavors. And with that said, thank y'all so much for tuning into the season premiere of season 2 of The Recap. We back, baby. So each and every week, man, I'll be right here giving you another show. Thank y'all so much for the support. I'll catch y'all next week. Bye.